Dr. Sebastian Gorka, former Deputy Assistant to the President and Chief Strategist for Make America Great Again Coalition, joins us live from the D.C. Bureau. Dr. Gorka, what we know about the suspect, we know a lot. We know that, as Rob just said, he's 29 years old. He's from Uzbekistan, came in on a diversity visa. He was a commercial driver, and then he was an Uber driver until yesterday. They just fired him. And he had a couple of things in the cab of the rental truck that suggested he had pledged allegiance to ISIS, and I read one account where apparently he had a picture of an ISIS flag. Where would you like to start in describing what happened?
Well, the sad truth is what happened yesterday should not be a surprise to anybody, because this is the new mode of attack of ISIS. Al-Qaeda started talking about this in their magazine Inspire years ago. They actually had a photograph of an F-150 Ford pickup truck and an article on how you use a vehicle like that to mow down the infidel. Then ISIS started to propagate this mode of attack in their publications, including Dabiq. And then we saw it happen all over Europe, whether it's in Nice, in France, whether it's in Germany, whether it's on that bridge in London, in the UK. They took this very, very simple yet effective mode of irregular attack to the heart of the infidel as they see it. And yesterday, this type of attack came to the streets of Manhattan within blocks, for the third instance, within blocks from the World Trade Center.
What makes them, I know you're a terrorism expert, what makes them do something like this? I know this is radical extremism. Why do they believe that their God wants them to do something like this?
Well, there are passages, many passages in the Quran that talk about the need to use violence, to use physical jihad against the infidel. We know that the original caliphate wasn't propagated by peaceful missionary work into the Hijaz, into North Africa, into Spain. It was done in many cases by the use of force. Muhammad wasn't just a prophet, according to Islam. Muhammad was a military leader. The Quran, the Hadith, the historic stories that are recounted in Islamic history talk of whole tribes being decimated, not just infidels, but Muslims who disagreed with Muhammad, Jewish tribes also being decimated. So this is part and parcel of a history that the Salafists, the jihadists, use to justify their violence, because their argument is the caliphate, the theocratic empire of Islam, must span the whole world, and infidels are in the way of that empire being recreated.
You know, a couple of things. Salafist Islamists is a form of Sunni Islam, not Shia Islam that you find now running Iraq and running Iran. So would you think that it would be a good opportunity for the Uzbek leaders, for the Saudis, for Qatar, these other Sunni-led nations, to condemn this and make it clear that when you greeted President Trump months ago and said we're going to renounce terror, that we are on board and just as outraged as you? Would you hope to hear that today?
Yeah, I think the president's speech, President Trump's speech in Riyadh, was a game changer. I had one female from the region, an Arab, tell me after he made that speech to more than 50 Arab and Muslim heads of state, she said to me, that's the speech we, so the people of the region, have been waiting for 16 years. The president called out those leaders. He gave them tough love. He said, quote, you have to rid your communities, you have to rid your houses of worship of the extremists, of the terrorists.
Right.
Afterwards, they blockaded, they took action against Qatar, the country of greatest concern when it comes to promoting this kind of ideology. So yes, this would be prime time, Brian, prime time for them to say, we condemn all of this, and for them to say, this doesn't represent their Islam. That would be very helpful.
So, Dr. Gorka, people this morning are waking up and they're trying to figure out, how did this terrorist get into the United States of America? He came in legally. He came in through the diversity visa program back in 1990, when the 1990 Immigration Act was going through Congress. Turns out Chuck Schumer attached his bill, this diversity visa program, to this, which brings in 50,000 visas from a variety of countries, some with known terrorist entities as well, Do we, and I know that your former boss, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, has made it very clear he wants to get rid of this program. Given the fact what happened yesterday here in New York City happened, does he have a stronger case for getting rid of it?
Sadly, this event just reinforces all the efforts the president has made with regards to reforming immigration, the extreme vetting, looking at why and how we choose people to come into this country. And by the constitutional writ of this nation, it is his prerogative. It is the president's prerogative to decide upon what metrics we measure immigration to this country. And the idea that, I mean, we are the most diverse nation the world has ever seen.
We don't need a lottery.
We don't need, exactly. The idea that we're just going to, if you've got a high school diploma and 2 years of work experience, we can roll a dice and you can come into America and it's not based upon whether or not you are strengthening the nation. That has to end. That's insanity. Right. That's using political correctness in a way that is potentially suicidal for our security.
What's the president going to do? What's the next step? How will he enforce the merit-based system that he wants to do and then get rid of this plan?
Well, look, there are many models out there, and look at Australia, look at New Zealand. They have incredibly stringent immigration requirements. It's based upon education. It's based upon skill set. There's a whole slew of yardsticks you have to meet. And if you don't meet them, you don't get to come in. You don't play bingo and give the guy a green card. So, you know, there are many things that we could look at, and I know the president is dedicated to making sure only people who do not threaten America are allowed in if they add to the nation.
Dr. Gorka, remember, the first conflict the president had with the Australian leader is he called him up and says, wait a second, we're supposed to take refugees that you won't let in your country into our country? This is the dumbest deal ever. And that was the readout of that illegally leaked exchange. And we had to take those refugees. So these other countries are allowed to have standards, but we have to have a lottery system. And I just hope there'll be a Democrat and Republican behind the microphone today saying it's time to end this program in light of the reality of the war on terror that we're fighting.
No more political correctness. Political correctness can kill people. We know in San Bernardino that the neighbors of the killers saw suspicious activity but refused to report it because they were afraid of being called racists or Islamophobes. Political correctness can get people killed. It cannot be applied to immigration and should not be applied to policing either. So this is what the president has been doing since January the 20th, and unfortunately this tragedy strengthens his hand.
You know, unfortunately as well, it turns out, according to our own Rob Schmidt, who is on location there in Paterson, New Jersey, the suspect's mosque has been under surveillance by New York City police, it sounds like, since 2005. And in fact, this particular terrorist, who has no, substantial criminal history, apparently was on the Fed's radar in an unrelated investigation. It's unclear whether or not they were investigating a friend or family or something like that. But nonetheless, it's one of those things, they were over there, they were looking at the mosque, and now what does something else need to happen regarding surveillance of places like that? Because, the New York City mayor has said very clearly he wants to get rid of it.
Yeah, that has to end. So Mayor de Blasio injecting politics into the safety of New Yorkers or Americans, that day is gone. I'm sorry, people's blood is on the streets, and we have to think rationally. This type of attack, we love technology. We are the most technology-heavy intelligence community in the world. But at the end of the day, this kind of attack will be prevented not by satellites, not by phone intercepts, but by that human asset, that covert informant, that agent inside the mosque, inside that community, who sees the signs beforehand and can tip off the authorities to bring that person in. If you pull back our human intelligence capabilities, it's the eyes and ears of our law enforcement, and we become blind. So I dearly hope the mayor and Governor Cuomo will rethink their politically motivated attitude to the safety of all Americans.
All right.
Dr. Gorka, thank you very much.